Are you ready to get woke? Welcome to the Woke as podcast with your host, Alex Lazarev.
So, welcome, good people, to another
episode of
the Woke as Fuck podcast. I didn't even prepare him for that. He just did it. This guy's a natural. So, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome.
See, they're not gonna hear that.
Oh,
see what happened?
Welcome to my humble abode.
All right, we're actually in his house. It's a beautiful, beautiful spot right in Vilcabamba. Probably the best spot in town. It's literally next to the river, about like a 10-minute walk to town. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's fantastic. So it's gonna be good vibes today. So if I were to ask you simply, who are you? What would you say?
Well, I have a.
Who is Dickson?
Dickson is Dickson is my name,
Yep.
which represents who I am. But who I am is a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm more.
Getting started on the woo.
And I'm more than my body.
Well.
And I realized that the first time I was outside of it.
Okay, good. So we'll be able to get into some of that juicy stuff. Here's what we'll do. Let's do a couple of fun, just a little kind of warm-up questions, and then we'll get into like the deeper, you know what I'm saying, the deeper stuff. So we'll just do a couple of fun ones. Would you consider yourself a socially free person?
Yeah, compared to most people. You know,
because most people are squares.
Most people are in their own circle of friends, their own belief systems, and they're not adventuresome. Mm-hmm. And I put myself out there, like I'm putting myself out here right now.
It's true. You are. I would also say you're a little bit more than the average. What's the craziest thing you've ever done?
Jumping out of a window across 15 feet to land on a bank. That was probably the craziest. Climbing cliffs. I used to climb redwood trees that were bigger than this table across, and I'd climb up on the bark 30 feet till I got a branch. That was pretty crazy. I wouldn't do that now, but that was the craziest.
I wouldn't do that now either. Here's a fun one. What's your general advice to people when it comes to dating and relationships? Do you have one key piece of wisdom you would give to the humans out there?
Just draw upon your the deeper part of yourself. Be honest, be loving, be intelligent, be funny, be all that you can be. And you don't have to be in the army.
I was going to say, we're just quickly turning into an ad.
We all can have a lot to draw upon. And if you put yourself out there, you know, it's like priming the pump. The more you put out, the more it comes out. You want to be more loving, act more loving. You know, and you're a stand-up comic.
Sometimes.
Well, you know, that's putting yourself out there, you know. So I'd say just bring out the deepest part of yourself, whatever part you want to let out. And I think your genuine soul essence is the best thing.
What about those guys that just keep getting their dick out at the inappropriate moments? Do you think they should also do
whatever
that?
Floats your boat.
Right.
It's not for me, but you know, I'm pretty much a libertarian. As long as you don't hurt somebody, don't steal from somebody, it's all pretty simple.
That's also along the lines of the voluntarist movement, isn't it? I consider myself in that group. Do whatever, but don't. As long as somebody volunteers to be part of something, great, but don't force anything on anybody.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be into S&M, go ahead, but
don't get liquids on me unless I sign up for it.
Exactly.
Know? I don't want to be sticky on the way home.
Make life a win-win situation.
I think it should be win-win also. All right, and what's another fun warm-up question? Oh, okay, here's a fun one. Let's say you had a time machine. And you could go back and you could give yourself some advice when you were, let's say, 18. What would you tell yourself?
Follow your vision. Do the best you can in every way you can, in every moment, and don't worry about the result. And then the next moment, you do the best you can then, because in every moment we have a different paradigm in the timeline. which isn't a line, it's more of a Mobius strip. Time is eternal. Jesus said, I am, I was, I ever will be. He was talking outside of the linear time and into the more of a Mobius strip represents it. It's where the infinity sign comes from, except for it's a ring where it's a continuous loop. And that's what eternity is. There's no reincarnation. Your soul is just incarnating at different places on a timeline, but again, it's not a line, it's a loop. So if I have other lifetimes that I tap into, they're all part of the now for my soul. They may be a past life for me, but my soul is living in past, present, and future.
Yep. I've come to similar conclusions. So your advice to yourself?
Do the best you can.
Don't be a schmuck.
And really, ask yourself, what is it, because a lot of times we don't do self-examination. We just sort of go along, well, I got to pay the bill, I got to get a place to rent, I would like to go out with that girlfriend. I mean, you do want to have positive desires of what you want to experience in life, but really challenge yourself. What is my highest dream? And go for it. And it doesn't mean you're going to make it in a day or a month or a year, but every step forward, you're getting closer. And so keep on going, persevere. Another one is embody your virtues, vision, perseverance, patience, being gentle, being strong. We are like a disco ball. We have many facets of who we are, and we need to develop every one of those. It's not going to all happen today or tomorrow, this year, maybe not even this lifetime, but that's why we are here, to draw upon that inner essence, our soul, or biblically, Christ within you is your hope of glory. It's, he wasn't into being idolized. Churchianity has done that. People that take over all the systems, on this planet, political, religious, business, a lot of them are sociopaths that just want power and glory and blah, blah, blah. Me, me, me. And anyway, so I'm very much into drawing upon that love and light and all the other virtues that are already in me. I'm not going to get it.
So, let's start at the beginning. Before we get into all the crazy stuff, the good stuff, the spiritual stuff, give us a little bit about just like your sort of background. Like, where did you come from in terms of like upbringing? Was it shitty? Was it traumatic? Was it nice? What were you brainwashed with religion? What what's your fucked up shit? That's the best first question. What's your fucked up shit? I'd like to know.
Well, I'd like to say my mama made me do this, but no, anything that was wrong in my life, I did myself. My parents were both very intelligent. I grew up in Mill Valley, California, one of the most beautiful spots in the world. I had an IQ at one point 168. It's probably half that now. I was the smartest kid in class. I could run fast, good eye-hand coordination. I had everything going for me. And yet I felt guilty, and I felt not good enough. And, so those were all trips in my mind. And my parents were both virtuous, intelligent, you name a positive attribute, they had them. So I had examples of so many positive things, so anything that was negative in my life, it was on me. Probably the only problem I had in my life was they just expected me to be virtuous like they were. They didn't program me to be a Presbyterian like my mom was raised as, or a Christian Scientist like my dad, because neither one of them practiced a religion. They just lived a virtuous life. And so I was very blessed. and I'm still blessed. And so, I wasn't programmed.
Well, that's good, because most people get programmed with some shit, whether it's not even necessarily religion, but just like beliefs, parents, maybe someone's an alcoholic or somebody is really bad at communication or so. I was totally fucked as a child. So you didn't have, you can't think of any, you had it pretty decent. You didn't have some heaviness or something.
No, from my family, no. I had things happen in my life that were traumatic, but those are, high school, college. I did get into taking some drugs, a couple of bad acid trips, but mostly good. I just felt like it added to my perception. I wasn't hallucinating, seeing, monsters coming at me. It was more like I would see that bush has an energy field around it. It does.
It totally does, yeah.
We all do. And it sort of brought to my memory the fact that when I was a child, up till about 6 or 7, when I daydreamed, I'd see energy around people and other clairvoyant things. But then when somebody moved, I'd go back to three-dimensional thinking, normal perception. But so I had gifts of perception as well.
Mm-hmm. When was the first time you noticed that you had some kind of extra little gifts going?
Well, later on, let me say one thing first. The first really paranormal experience I had was I was in a pond in the North San Juan in the Sierras, and I had something bite me in the back, and I went up in the air and 50 feet away, and I'm on the shore in like that. And I'd never read Carlos Castaneda, never even imagined something like that was possible. And when I landed there, I'm looking at my friend. He looked at me like jaws dropping. We never said a word. I buried it for years. So, and I later on read about that 90% of people have one type of paranormal experience or another, and there are many. But 90% of those sort of bury it. Oh, that was Satan making me hallucinate, or, whatever excuses. Most people just sort of
find a way to rationalize. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But back in my mid to late 20s, I started noticing things like the phone rang, and I'd go, well, I know that's John. Or I'd hear something on a radio going, a ferry went down in the Philippines, and I'd go, 68 people died. And it was just little things like that I sort of wasn't thinking about being psychic or spiritual or anything like that. It was sort of like a little, I don't know, game I was playing in the back of my head. But I ended up, when I was about 27 and a half, 28, I was relaxing with a friend, lovely day like today, and we weren't saying anything, we weren't on anything, and all of a sudden I'm seeing a deep blue aura emanating from him. And I said, Bruce. And then I shut up, because right there in this energy field in front of me, I'm seeing the face of a Chinese man along with his torso. And it wasn't just seeing this other lifetime. It was being in that person. I could feel that he had an immense amount of power. I don't know if he was a king or a martial artist or what, but it was experiencing the essence. And then that goes away. And I'm seeing this Italian sea trader and so on and so forth. And that was the first real boom. Wow, what was that? And it was more of a deep perception and experience of a holistic reality than I'd ever experienced in my normal days of, life. And so that put me on the path. And I started, when I went to sleep, it'd say, God, Jesus, Moses, Buddha, Kuan Yin, anybody out there, can you hear me? Please guide me. And I would, from my heart and my mind, I was invoking. I didn't know what invocation was. I didn't know what prayer was. I didn't meditate, but I just started really reaching out and transmitting what my heart and soul wanted, and I started getting revelations. I started waking up early in the morning, and I've had a dream that gave me information, and I at the same time I'm looking out for books and workshops, and I'd go to, this is Eugene, Oregon. I went to used bookstores, and I'd look under spirituality, metaphysics, religion, and I'd go along, and boom, something just felt right. Well, I later found out that term is psychometry. Our psyche can register things. And I go on segues all the time, but I did a workshop once where we were asked to just put our hand over somebody, and I realized I was feeling this guy's aura, and I found a spot in his chest, and I'm going, I feel something right here. And he said, yeah, I've had an infection there. Anyway, so on and so forth. We have a great ability to do way more than what we think we can. And it's not just Jesus or some Tony Robbins or whatever mystic, or New Ager or Christians laying on of hands. Everyone has the power to do it. We are divine beings. As when they got down on Jesus for people saying he was the Son of God, he said, well, don't the Old Testament, doesn't your own book say ye are gods and you know it not? And speaking of Tony Robbins, Jesus is Mr. Empowerer,
So yeah, I'm 100% with you. I mean, from what I've seen, especially in the last couple of years, I've had the I've just been so blessed. Some of my teachers are full-on masters, like the legit, where you're like, oh wow, you're actually enlightened, holy fuck, and you don't even realize. Like, you have to get to a certain point to even realize it, because they don't show it off. They don't talk. They're just like, everyone would just be like, oh, they're really nice, but they're fucking way up there. And I've seen miracles happen right in front of me, like shit that is not possible. Right in front of me, just happened. Holy fuck. Okay, just breathe, and that just happened. Good. Regular. Happens on the regular around these people. And here's the thing. It's not them. And that's what they'll say. They'll say, I'm not doing anything. It's that the ego is not there. And they're empty. And the whole, whatever you want to call it, Christ, Holy Spirit, God, source, whatever, is just working through them. But we're all that. Our essence is always that. And then, of course, the conditioning comes in. Oh, yeah, you're this person. Your name is this. You have this problem. You're poor. You're smart. You're stupid. All this conditioning, and then we identify as this ego. And in my big experiences, that's not me. That's completely fucking melted away. And there's just the fucking infinite presence. So that's the one that's actually doing all the magical stuff. It's not us. We're not doing shit.
Exactly.
But we are that. We're divine. We're that. Right? It doesn't get more divine than that. That's the one, right?
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be a Christian or anything, but Moses, when he, was guided by a fire, cloud by day and a fire by night to Mount Sinai, it's all metaphorical. But when he had the revelations, he asked, well, who am I supposed to say, gave me this? And he said, I am that I am. Well, that I am. There is one being in the whole universe, one song, and it's the song of creation, and with infinite melodies, and each one of us has our own tune we got to play with. But when Jesus said, I am the way and I am the truth, he wasn't talking about me, the persona of Jesus. He was talking about his true identity as a soul, the Christ within him, which he totally expressed. And so that's the key. Tap into your soul and express it in every way you can.
That's it. And so that's the thing that's the deepest thing I feel people, would be beneficial if they were to really resonate with and understand. Anything that any of these masters has done, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, any of them, it's all us. We are the same as them. And literally what you just said is verbatim. At some point, I'll tell you my last big fucking crazy awakening that happened. But it was insane. And it was essentially there is only one being in existence, and it is I am. It is the self. It is everything that is, and that is our true nature. That is our identity. That's actually what we are in infinite forms. And after we're done here, guess what? Going straight back to the all. And I've been in that for quite some time in the all, and it was fucking mind blowing. Mind blowing. Even for a moment to be in that is mind blowing. Holy fuck. Anyway, so good. So circling back around. Tell me, so when you had that first experience, was it that you saw this, you felt that you were this Asian guy that you saw?
No.
Or
I knew that each one of these images, the persona.
So you're hanging out with your buddy, right?
He's like,
he's like
4
there.
feet away.
Okay.
But right here, 3 feet away, I'm seeing this like
this other dude.
Holographic projection from his soul.
Okay.
And I was experiencing that total persona from the inside out, almost more than I'm experiencing myself right now.
Mm-hmm,
and each one of these 35 or 40, in the minute it pops in my experiencing the soul, I was knowing how each one of those was part of his soul, which was and his personality in this lifetime had aspects of that. I could tie, why my friend was, so triple Aries, alpha male, and anyway, it was
Okay, so you could see way more than,
more than just
than
the
normal.
image. Yeah.
And in the moment, because that was your first kind of like, really out there experience, were you kind of like, this is cool, or were you kind of freaking out going,
I
are you fucking
freak out
serious?
at all.
You
I'm
were cool.
going, this was more real than anything in my life.
Okay.
And
So-
I was down to 2 packs of cigarettes at that time, and I smoked a moderate amount of pot and a moderate amount of alcohol. But without even thinking, I became so, I don't want to say obsessed, but I was focused on finding deeper truth. Where did this experience come from? Because it was real. It was perceiving and knowing. And so, whether it was a seminar here or a book there or dreams, I, bit by bit, like a snowball, rolling down a hill, I picked up speed and more wisdom and more knowledge and more experience. And then at some point I realized I wasn't getting information. It was inside myself. And the key is knowing that that potential is inside oneself and to express it. And there's another biblical quote, which most Christians don't talk about, but once you accept Christ as your salvation, you must work it out. Christ is an it. Christ is a principle. It's a matrix of who we truly are in our soul essence. Now, Jesus, the Christ, was someone who embodied that Christ presence within himself.
Yeah, they don't like it when you tell them that, because that's also what I figured out. Christ is a consciousness that's infinite and immortal, and any of us human beings can tap into the Christ within, and we can also become the Christ. I mean,
Yes.
we're one with it.
Well,
But it's not one dude. It's not like a
No.
dude. It's not a dude.
No,
It was never a dude. There was a dude, but there's lots of dudes.
exemplar. He does.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be idolized. He said, "It's not I, but the Father, which worketh through me." And Father
Right.
is not a guy with giant balls. It meant in Greek, first cause. Before the world was, I am, and from that let there be light. Etc. But there's another biblical quote, and I do like to quote certain truths because we live in a quote-unquote Christian culture, is once you accept Christ as your salvation, you must work it out. But it also says, let that mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus. So there's a Christ mind. It is a collective soul mind, Christ mind, that each one of us can access through prayer. Prayer biblically was an Aramaic word which meant to prepare a channel for. So you do need to actively invoke, put up your antenna. We are transceivers. We tap in to receive, and then we transmit. Everything can be explained in energy. You don't need to have New Age talk. You don't need biblical talk. It's all energy.
Yeah, it always comes down to that, doesn't it?
Yeah. In with the good and out with the bad. The most profound things are the simplest. People, somebody will give somebody some advice and they'll say, oh, that's so trite. Trite advice is not trite. It's probably, it's like love your neighbor as yourself. It's easy to say, but to do it, if you can learn to truly love your neighbor as yourself and to learn to love yourself as your neighbor, then you are going to be one of those enlightened people, because that is the foundation of anything else you would do in life.
Yeah, man, it really comes down to the practice, even after having really, really profound experiences of that, it's just that one infinite being experiencing itself through infinite forms. After a while, eventually go back to relatively normal, higher level of consciousness than you were, but you kind of go back into the world, and it's the practicing. I had my first big awakening. I was in God shock for about 6 days. There's a whole story to it, but I literally was there, and through a series of thoughts, just really remembered that I was God, and then literally just my reality collapsed, ego collapsed, and I was just sitting there in absolute bliss, knowing I'm all of it, and that went on for quite some time, and crazy shit happened during that period, but even and for a while, literally for months after that, anyone walked up to me and just like, hey, can I have some money? I'm like, there you go, there's $20. Every person. You know why? It was all me. And I knew it to such a degree. I'm like, why wouldn't I help you out? I wouldn't haggle over money anymore, because it's like, it's me. How much for this bag of oranges? I know you're charging me $3 more than you're supposed to, but you know what? It's okay, because you're me. It was completely, and of course, after a few months, eventually the ego comes in slowly and goes, well, you're not that rich. You can't just be giving everyone $20. Come on, bro. And eventually you're like, all right, well, maybe I'll just give the guy a couple of bucks. And then eventually you're like, get a job. So it's staying in that truth. That's the challenge in this crazy world with all the conditioning and the anger, all this kind of stuff. It's staying in that love and in that ultimate truth and being the Christ all the time. Yeah.
Well, you have to be discerning in the moment. Somebody, maybe they do need a fish, but somebody else needs to be taught to fish.
Sure. Yeah. Discernment is a really big, important word.
Yep.
For shizzle. So you had that when you went down the rabbit hole and you started reading all kinds of esoteric stuff and all kinds of stuff. So let's get into that. So in your life, and maybe early on and how old were you when you had that first experience with seeing the guy?
It was
like
close
20s
to 28.
20. Okay, so late 20s. Yeah, that's kind of when I started as well, popping off. 30 years old, had my first kind of awakening. So let's say there in your 30s kind of thing. What were your kind of big influences in terms of things you were reading, or like what really resonated with you, and kind of what started happening in that part of your journey, kind of earlier on?
I always felt like when I was really tuned in, like I was right in the eye of the hurricane, and I'd be that way for a day or two, a minute or two, and then boom, I'd be out. And I ended up getting a book. Well, let's see. Anyway, book after book, it led me to a book called what was it?
Celestine Prophecy?
No, it was The Ultimate Frontier. Anyway, something like that.
Okay. Who was it by? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
No idea. Okay.
But
we'll try and look that up.
It talked about the Great White Brotherhood, as in white light.
It got awkward there for a second. So, whoa, what's this guy about, Sasha? Hang on a second.
No, this white light. Before the rainbow of colors, you have the white light, and then it hits a crystal and goes out into prismatic effect. But it talked about the Great White Brotherhood and brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever. I'm not into being whatever siblinghood, but I got that, and then I heard about a woman who was clairvoyant, clairsentient, Mildred Walker, who wrote books on auras and past lives and this and that, and people said, you should go get a life reading. Well, I went to her, and she said, I normally don't get a hit like this. You are going to service with Saint Germain. Well, the day before, I'd bought a book called The Great White Brotherhood and the Culture and History of America. and it was written by Mark and Elizabeth Clare Prophet, and they channeled Saint
Germain.
Saint Germain and other Mother Mary, and that was like the first group that I felt really had truth. And I almost went down to the Summit Lighthouse down in Southern California, but I met a woman who was another clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient. Her name was Miriam Zukor. But I ended up checking her out a couple times, and the third time I went to see her, after the second I'm going, one of these is the right path and one is the wrong. I wasn't realizing that all paths can lead to Rome, metaphorically. So I said, okay, God, what am I supposed to do? And I went to see Miriam, and there was about 15 people gathered in the circle. And she said, I'm going to do what some people call channeling, others being with God, I am presence. I forget what her preface was, but when she opened her mouth she said, straighten your spine, uncross your legs, because a lot of energy is going to be coming through. And so I'm doing that. My eyes are closed. And all of a sudden, she starts speaking, and I am seeing through my closed eyes radiant rainbow light streaming, and I'm seeing it clairvoyantly coming out of her upper heart chakra. And it's like rainbow light beyond rainbows. And at the same time, her darshan awoke in my upper heart chakra, my secret chamber of the heart. Anyway, there's a lot of names for the upper heart chakra, but it's blazing out of me and her, and I'm opening my eyes, and it's the supernal light is shining from me, from her, and I'm closing my eyes, opening them. Anyway, that's when the first time I experienced supernal light. And that's really when I was, if you want to call it born again. I've never been able to stop the flame in my heart from being loving. And it's allowed me to love myself, forgive myself, have patience with myself and with others. Love your neighbors yourself. So that was the really big one.
That sounds cool. I've heard that term, supernal light, is it?
Yes.
Right? I don't know much about it, though, and it's also interesting that somebody that was supposed to be giving you basically a reading could have such a profound opening for you, because that sounds like something like a guru, like an enlightened master would, give you the darshan, and then that's crazy.
I jumped from this Mildred Walker who said she was doing the soul reading. Later, I'm sorry, I jumped to what later became my teacher, Miriam.
Oh, okay. Because I was confused. I'm like, you're getting a psychic reading, and this crazy fucking light comes out, and your heart opens up. I'm like, what reading does that happen at? So give me that. Well, freaking.
No, it ended up. Mildred Walker with the soul reading.
She sent you to.
She said I was going to go into service with Saint Germain. She was channeling him. But
you were with someone else for that experience?
That was with, Miriam. Okay. Other experiences led me to, reading about, the great white brotherhood and the culture and history of America. They tied together Eastern teachings, Western teachings, Christianity,
that
science.
That sounds like a good book. But who were you with that you had this?
Her name was Miriam, Isolde Miriam Zukor.
Still alive?
No, she.
That's a shame.
This is
long time ago.
40 years ago.
40 years, yeah.
I studied with her for close to 4 years.
Okay, and she was just enlightened being, or a spiritual teacher, or what would you?
Well, she was normal like anybody else until.
Doesn't sound like it.
Well, she awoke. She had experiences that led her to study. She studied with a man named Vitvan, Vitvan, who again, he was a normal guy. Was a ranger in the Northwest 100 plus years ago, and he started seeing clairvoyant, forest fires before they happened. He was seeing, like he'd look at a tree and he'd start seeing light particles like Star Trek and people, and so then he had a voice guide him to what became his teacher. Well, my teacher was guided to Wittmann. So was Dorothy McLean from Findhorn, and Elizabeth Keyes, who wrote a book called Toning. But, it's like we all pass the torch or awaken the light in other people. But, once you have that awakened, you need to stoke your own soul fire. I experienced with my teacher her darshan, because even when people that didn't see auras saw that, a 10-foot ball of light that was streaming out of her. I don't want to say it was around her, because it's really who she was, and we all are our aura, our body of light. But I could feel my aura being out 6 feet. But then I'd be out working in Eugene, Oregon, or Portland, Oregon, and I'd feel my aura going down, down, down. And then I studied many nights a week with her. But at some point, you need to go out and let your own light shine.
So you're talking about this. We were 4 years with this teacher where you had this experience with.
Yeah.
What was so when you say studying, was it doing energetic practices?
Energetic practices.
It was actually doing practices.
And being taught, various things like, we talk about the Christ energy. Well, the word Christ comes from the Greek, Chrestos. And the doctor's symbol, the caduceus, where there's two snakes swirling around a staff with wings at the top. Well, that was a very succinct visual metaphor of the quickening of the Holy Spirit. The two snakes, they were called Chrestos. And when we accelerate in physics, particle physics, you get a cyclotron where they take positive, negative charges either going in a circle like the Hadron over in, France and Switzerland, or back in the, 40 years ago, it was linear accelerator. But what they would do is take positive and negative charges and accelerate atoms. So that's how you quicken atoms to the speed of light. Well, you take that in physics, you put it inside yourself, and it's metaphysics when you start taking that principle of positive and negative polarities, not good and bad, positive and negative polarities, and that quickens us like a top, and we spin faster and faster till we're finally humming. And that is the staff. When you are at total integrity, thought, word, deed, emotions are just part of streaming goodness. You don't have guilt, you don't have anger, you don't have fear, because you've gotten them out of your system. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then you are Christed. So Chrestos was the snakes, the wings, you could take flight, and you're really a free spirit.
Nice. That's really interesting.
In India, they call it Ida and Pingala.
Okay, I've heard
and that when that clears your psyche, then the Kundalini, the mother nature, the mother fire, goes up, meets the Brahma, and then you are Krishna.
Yeah, my teacher, one of them, I guess my main one now, he told me, it's pretty interesting. I'd never heard this anywhere in my life. And he said there's actually 4 enlightenments, one per major religion, and they actually they happen in an order. So he said the first one is it's the Indian one, which is the pineal gland. So that's like the cosmos.
Pituitary, pineal.
Oh, pineal's up here.
Yeah.
Okay, I think he said it was anyway, it's the Indian one. I think he said it was this one. And then the second one is the Christ one, the Christ, so that's the heart opening, Christ consciousness. and then the third one is the Muslim power of speech, the throat. Allah, that one. That's the third. And then the final one, if you get it, is the crown, and that was the Buddhist crown, and that's the if you get that one, then you're fully cooked, you're fully enlightened, and apparently it happened in that order. But if you get one of them and you're in that religion, they would consider you to be enlightened. But in fact, it's 4 if you want to go all the way. So it's pretty interesting. I thought it was interesting anyway.
Well, the way I look at it, in this infinite universe, you can talk about the metaphorical Christ and the 12 disciples, but it's really, we are whole and holy in one. We're not, I'm a Capricorn, I'm a Aries, that sort of thing. We are in our spirit, the fullness of all those. We're not, the 12 planets, the 12 zodiac, all these 12, we're one. And if you want to divide into 4 periods of enlightenment, great. You can cut a pie into 4 pieces, 6 pieces, 12 pieces, and whatever helps you actually become a better person. And that is really having faith in the presence of who we truly are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's all we can do. So, what would you say was the principal, I guess, teaching or lesson, or like that you got maybe again during that period, and kind of moving forward into other teachers, other experiences?
Well, I went to a workshop. I'm not sure if I'm exactly answering your question, but I went to a workshop where they showed me experientially how to do remote viewing. And they did what's called dyads. You look and I didn't look at the person's eyes. I was looking through. In the remote viewing, they said the person I was doing the dyad with was told to name someone who they knew very well, good connection with, name, age, and where they were at. And he did this, and I went, okay, and I described what he looked like, all sorts of things about his personality. I was seeing him in my mind's eye. I saw what his brother looked like, what his younger sister and younger brother looked like, and I said he's up in New York doing some religious political thing. Well, the second day of the seminar, my dyad partner called this guy, and his mom said, well, he's not here. He's in New York. He's doing a paralegal work for the Church of Scientology in a lawsuit against the FBI. So I knew it was, I wasn't totally clairvoyant, but I knew he was in New York. Anyway, so we have an ability to pick up. And then I did a second one, but instead of seeing remote viewing this guy again, as I'm looking at the guy I was doing the dyad with, and before that I was feeling being in my heart chakra, in my third eye and crown. I was trying just to be attuned, like a tuning fork, to his presence. And all of a sudden I'm seeing shadows in his face, and I'm just being open. I wasn't trying to look at. I was seeing here, 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 here. It was trying to be open, global, orbal perception. And as I'm doing it, I ended up seeing these shadows, and then they were gone, and I'm seeing this woman, really frumpy, rich English woman, and blah, 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 and 4 or 5 other embodiments. So that was the first time I'd had an experience where I had a technique. And I went to other workshops, again, like where I rubbed put my hand on the outside of somebody. And I just was open to trying these things, laying on of hands. And, and I would do my best to send out energy. You know, I'd seen Kirlian photography and I'd seen auras, and I'm going, okay, well, prime the pump. I'll put out whatever good energy I can. And pretty soon I had people that had healings, you know, and but again, most of it's I try to be just in the right place in myself and allow whatever goodness and positive energy and love to come out. And
Yeah, amazing things happen when we hold that space, right?
Yep.
For reals. So all right, well, I guess let's just fucking open it up to just any profound realizations, experiences, any of the crazy shit. Share whatever you want to share.
Well, I think I've said the most important things. You know, there may be techniques, experiences. You know, I've had so many experiences over the years. I don't want to talk about experiences because that's not something that necessarily someone else can benefit from, other than going, well, if he's done it, I can do it. You know, I guess I had another one. That was me. I was climbing a cliff once where I was one side of the small creek and this woman I was with on the other side. And I'm going up and down and up and down. Like I said earlier, I loved climbing things. And I got to a point where it was a straight cliff directly ahead. So it's either going back, which I didn't want to do, or going down. And at this point, my feet were about 10 feet or so above the creek. But I decided I'm going to go over this ledge and find a spot for my feet to land. And I wasn't finding one. And something in me just said, let go. Not literally clairaudiently, but it was like, let go. And I let go. And I was just lowered about 8, whatever, so feet, just like slow motion. And I remember the spot that I was feeling was my solar plexus. And this was before I read Carlos Castaneda and The Separate Reality. But I had what he later described in his books as Don Juan projected from that. And so anyway, that was one of many paranormal experiences that I had. I have not been able to duplicate it, but there's the potential there, and that's an interesting one. I think one that's important is for sharing is because I had a dear friend leave us a couple of weeks ago, our dear friend, Phyllis Serene. I had an experience, well, several, with family members that died. And when my great uncle, who's like my grandfather, died, I was with my sister at a family gathering to celebrate his life. And my sister, Gail, said, you know, I really wish I could have told Lonnie how much I love him. And I said, well, you know, in your heart and soul, he knows you love him. But if you really want to put that out to him, feel in your heart where you love him and how warm and, you know, what love you have. Then take that place in your heart and go up through your mind and say whatever it is you want to say and send it out through your crown, sort of like a radio transmitter. And as I was saying this to her, I was doing it. And all of a sudden, we were what's called overshadowed by my great uncle. I am feeling his presence tingling in and around me. And I heard in my head about 6 lines. It started with, everything's wonderful here. There's nothing to be afraid of, and so on and so forth. And it was only like a minute, 6 sentences, and poof, he was gone. And then my sister Gail, we were right there with each other. She goes, I said, did you feel that? She said, yeah, I heard in my head, everything's wonderful here. There's nothing to worry about, ... And so that was the first time I had that experience. Then when my mother died, I'd gone outside the hospital and was, because they went and did a CAT scan. And I'm just opening up to do a crossword. And my mother's overshadowing me. And I'm hearing in my head, it's all okay now. And then she's gone. And I went in the hospital and she'd passed away, right when she came to me. So I'm saying that because, life and death are life and death subjects. And we're all pretty aware of life, maybe not the full potential, but death is something that is a doorway. We get born into a physical body, a matrix, a genetic matrix that our parents gave us, and then we build it with food and grow. But and this is another, I'd say, important thing is every thought you have and every feeling go into your chromosomes. Mm-hmm. It's a program. The psyche goes into the body, psychosomatic. So the more you have better, purer, more positive thoughts and feelings, and let go of the negatives, the blockages, then you can heal anything. And at some point, your chromosomes can literally be changed. My girlfriend and I, we process carbon-60, and it's one of the few, or maybe the only substance that actually helps telomeres re-telomerize in the chromosomes. Telomeres are the signaling tips of chromosomes. And a lot of people theorize that we can, youthify with carbon-60. I've had my own cancer and a tumor go away and a lot of other maladies. And in our little village, and 5 people that we have supplied carbon-62 have had cancer going away, including 2 stage 4s. But I'm not doing this as a commercial. I'm saying there's other ways to change your chromosomes, and that's to change the way you feel and change the way you think. And that is something that takes time, concerted effort, because when we slide off the pathway of life and do something wrong, righteousness is hitting the bullseye all the time. The word sin literally was a Greek word that meant missing the mark. So on the straight and narrow path, hitting the bullseye of life, you keep doing the best you can. When you slide off, you go, oh well, and just next time do the best you can. And what I said earlier was do the best you can now in every way that you can now, and don't worry about the results. And then anytime you do something that you think is not who you are, is a lesser self, just next time you do better. And bit by bit, you get the bullseye more and more and more.
Well, you said something really interesting, very interesting and very relevant for this very moment we're in. Coronavirus panic. And it seems like the main agenda is scare the living shit out of everybody. And I see it happening. Certain people, their vibration is getting lower. They're panicking. They're worried about their health. The virus is going to kill them. The economy's collapsing, all this kind of shit. And the irony is that, that's going to get you sick, being in fear, lowering your vibration. And then stay at home. Don't get any vitamin D. Stay away from the sun. Put a mask on.
Exercise.
And just, don't get exercise. I mean, it's fucking insane. So yeah, very, very relevant right now. To take charge of our health by ignoring the insanity, staying in the love, and ignoring any of these, and realizing that it's a campaign of fear designed to destroy us. Is what I think anyway.
I
so
think
don't
that's
comply.
Some people's agenda. There's Agenda 2030, Agenda, all these agendas where the power elite from the Pope, the royal family, they've been recorded saying we need to lower the world's population down to 500 million or 1 billion. But that's Malthusian mass genocide, for the environment. To me, it's a manipulation of the masses. But can I say something else that I feel
Sure.
is really, it's been powerful in my life as a way of, I don't know if the term is what it is, connected breathing, but you can draw in energy in your energy field from around you, the infinite that is around us, and draw in all the good energy you can. Prana, chi, God love, agape, angels, Jesus, whatever you want is that's good. Draw it into you, into your upper heart chakra, which is the chakra for agape love, soul love, Christ love. And when you do that, that chakra is superimposed over our thymus gland. The thymus gland is the heart of the immune system. And when you draw energy into your thymus gland, you stimulate it. You can also do what's called the thymus thump, just tapping gently to help direct energy there. But by focusing energy, there's an esoteric maxim called energy follows thought. You focus your energy in your crown, you're more likely to have your pineal gland working, which will give you clairvoyance. If you focus on your upper heart chakra and think about love, you're going to be able to draw upon the infinite love that's within you. And, some paths say focus on your, solar plexus. And that might be good to help bring things out, Anyway, there's so many paths, breathing techniques we mentioned earlier. You can visualize a soul light coming down, spiraling through you and carrying anything that's less than light out of your body into the center of the planet to burn in the fires below. Anyway, I've heard so many paths that I just try to know that my soul knows how to sort them out, and you start getting the messages from within, and I earlier said about how I was asking God and Christ and all that. Well, ask them and ask yourself, because you do have a soul essence.
Yeah. Some people call it the higher self.
Higher self.
Whatever you want to call it.
Whatever you want to call it. A rose by any other name smells as sweet.
Yep. It's true. It's true. Yeah, if people, I'm really hoping in this time now, it seems like a lot of people are being forced into awakening. So hopefully more and more people, it seems like, are realizing that we are infinite beings. And there's a lot of power in that, realizing that we're all one. Because it changes the way we act and behave with each other, with the planet. And it also helps us, step into our power as sovereign beings. Because if you know the truth of who you are, you cannot be manipulated at all. But when you really think you're this little monkey flesh suit that's, very vulnerable and they can fuck with you and they can, and all this kind of stuff, then you're more likely to be like, oh, please don't hurt me. But if you really know who you are, forget about it. You can't be controlled.
And one can use those opportunities when somebody triggers you, whether it makes you angry. It doesn't make you angry. It triggers the anger within you. Or the coronavirus. It triggers our latent fear. Use that as an opportunity to, what I do is like, okay, all right, I'm feeling fear. I'm going to let it go. Almost like a woman giving birth. They take a deep breath, let it go. Let the flow happen. Well, I work at taking a deep breath and letting go of the fear. Let go and let God draw in the good, love, peace. And when you breathe out, let go of the fear. And again, it's a process. I still have had some fear now and again, but, nothing like I was at any other time in my life.
Yeah. That's the cool thing about, being around the planet a little bit longer. You just have more time to, do the healing and learn things. And, I'm just so much more chill and in a better place than I ever was. Yeah, so it's a beautiful process, and it's not overnight. So just like I always say to everybody, like take your time. There's no rush. You have infinite lifetimes. So just just keep growing and learning and following your truth, and putting the intention out there that you want the help. Something you said earlier I didn't comment on, but when I actually call out to my higher self,
Alora.
when I call out to my, whether it be Christ or any teacher or my higher self or just the universe before bed, and I say, hey, come and teach me. I want more wisdom, help me open up my heart and love more and feel more. Man, I have the most fucking crazy dreams. I mean, whenever I ask, I just get. And that's the thing. It's like, it works for everybody. Yeah, like I'm not special. If you go up there and you're like, hey, I need some help with this or that or whatever, man, you will get it. Like, it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I've had some of the most profound realizations. Literally in dreams, I'll wake up and go, oh, that makes sense. Fuck, and boom, I got it. It's just, there it was.
Yep.
It's crazy.
It's personifying the principle. Jesus taught principles, and other teachers teach principles that we need to practice ourselves. I just thought of another one. Affirmations. If we're sharing all this stuff, I am a wise person. I am dealing with all my problems in a very courageous way. Some people have rhythmic decrees, they call it. The Bible says, decree a thing in faith and it shall be manifest. There's so many different ways to tap into the power within. But the most important thing is to know that power and presence of love and wisdom is within you. That's the most important thing I want to get across.
Yep. You said it, brother. Oh, yeah. Well, I feel like you've said most of the stuff you wanted to say.
Yeah, I know.
But there's no pressure.
No.
There's no pressure to continue or to end.
Well,
there's no pressure at all.
I've enjoyed this. I'm like I said, I didn't sleep much last night, but anything that's really true comes out nice and easy.
Beautiful. So we could end there, and then if you're inspired, we could always do a part 2 anytime.
All right.
All right.
Sounds good to me. I love you. Love yourself.
Okay.
Namaste and namasko.
Hey, that's good. I'm stealing that.
I made that up about 40 years ago.
No, that's good. I'm totally jacking it. So those of you listening on whether it's iTunes or the other one, whatever the other one is, Libsyn, know that we're all on YouTube. So there is bonus content I'm putting up, sometimes from podcasts and sometimes me teaching things on YouTube. So if you look up Woke as Fuck on YouTube, we're also there. And feel free to join the newsletter as well, because some good stuff coming. Love all you guys out there, and keep being you. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.